Top 3 lessons to learn from integrations. I've got a bit of a different video for you today. We chat with Cameron from Clear Horizon, who we pitched a project to about 6 or 12 months ago. We did end up getting that project, but we've kept in touch, and I want to see how the project went and what lessons they've learned. This video is going to give you a key insight into how clients learn how integrations work, as well as the software development process overall impacts the project. Without further ado, let's get into it and see if we can learn a few lessons about integration. Maybe start with what you were trying to do. We talk about, you've got, what you guys do, what products you were trying to use and what you were trying to achieve.
Yeah, sure. So Clear Horizon Academy deliver a bunch of learning programs for people wanting to learn more about measurement, evaluation, and learning. And we've been running for about a year and a half. So for the first year of our operations, we were really just running a WordPress website. And then we had a separate MailChimp, which was basically all we had as a CRM, as well as a spreadsheet, a Google spreadsheet where we were collecting payment information and other kind of info about our clients. And then a learning management system, which was LearnDash, which was integrated with the WordPress site. So we had a lot of data that was living in lots of different places, and we really wanted to bring everything together. About a year ago, we took on a new learning management system, and so we started to retire LearnDash, and it kind of came rapidly to the realization that there was no out-of-the-box integration solution available for Brightspace as a learning management system. Mm-hmm. So it didn't integrate easily with WordPress. So then we were thinking, okay, so we have to basically build this ourselves or find someone who's able to do that integration for us. We had no one in-house who really had the tech skills required. We have a few developers, but they weren't able to work with the particular languages that were required. So about that time, I got in touch with you, and we started kind of fleshing out what the integration process might look like. Mm-hmm. And I went out to a few other providers as well and ended up getting lots of different quotes, which ranged very significantly in terms of a suggested approach, pricing, and the languages and the databases that they'd be recommending setting up. It got to the point where I was like, I can't make heads or tails of what is the best path here. Really liked the proposal that you put forward. But I kind of thought, until I have more capability in-house, I can't even make a good call on who to go with.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so we ended up hiring in a full stack developer who then was able to work with us to better understand what stack we should be working with. And so they he set about figuring that out. And then, and then we actually developed a project plan and rolled the thing out. And we've been working for the past 6 months on pulling all those bits and pieces together. We now have a fully integrated system that is almost where I want it to be. There's a few tweaks to make, but it's getting
good, mate. A successful project in IT is good. Any successful project, really. They're all a challenge. So you were trying to bring a number of systems together to integrate. So how did you end up doing it? I know I discussed a sort of, I call like a hub and spoke or a star system where there's like a central piece that it comes through and pull out. What did you end up deciding on sort of your side to do?
Yeah, we ended up basically creating a new website using a headless CMS called Strappy. And then he built, our developer Rob built a website from scratch using, I can't remember the particular language, but anyway. So we had the website. That passes data through to Acelo, which we've set up as a CRM. Mm-hmm. And so that captures our client data. And then we send payment information to Stripe. And so invoicing, credit card payments, they all go through to Stripe, get processed there. When someone successfully pays for the course, then that information gets updated in Acelo. And it also goes back to the website and tells it to release the course to Brightspace, which is our LMS. So, and then the LMS enrolls people automatically. They get an email saying, hey, your course is ready for you to start. So that's kind of roughly how we've set things up. And we're now figuring out how we integrate MailChimp, and we're kind of tweaking the CRM a little bit, but everything else is functioning as we want it to.
Cool. So you've sort of got like a central thing, but some of the calls are sort of procedural, like one after another. So you might call into one and then it's going to call onto the next one, sort of thing.
That's right.
I guess you made some decisions along the way about what you'd use. So okay, cool. So you tried to sort of limit the number of integration points, because obviously, otherwise, as you probably found out, each time you need to integrate from one, you've got to build it in that software. So I guess that
right.
moves us nice on to the next one. What sort of challenges did you run into? What were sort of some of the issues that you sort of had along the way, and some things you didn't know when you were going into it, and sort of lessons learned, I guess?
Yeah, so many lessons learned. I think the first thing we discovered quite quickly was, I mentioned it previously, like Brightspace as a platform is very locked in stone. You can't really get in there as a developer and tweak much. Mm-hmm. So they've got an API and you can kind of work with that to a degree, but there's a lot that we couldn't get out of Brightspace and we couldn't put in. And it turns out we couldn't really get much at all out of Brightspace. We could just send the data one way to Brightspace. So that was an unfortunate discovery to make quite late into the piece. With Acello, we found that, again, there were lots of limitations with it as a CRM. Like we couldn't have set up a course mm-hmm. in Acello as like they call them projects, but let's say it's a thing that you're selling.
Yeah.
We couldn't set up, say, like measurement, evaluation, and learning course as a thing that we could then link lots of clients to as they purchased it. We had to create little tickets for each purchase that lived separately to a project, and there was no way to link the two together. So that was a massive limitation, which has meant we've had to go outside and export the data from Acello to Power BI in order to pull information across multiple modules in Acello.
Oh, wow.
So that's frustrating. It basically means that rather than it being a CRM, it's actually just a database where we house all our customer information, and then we use an external tool, Power BI, to pull it all together and make sense of it. So, that's not really a CRM, to be honest.
Yeah, well, look, CRMs do end up a bit that way. They're just the data dump for client data, really. And they're meant to be a bit smarter, but there's plenty of work to be done on them. So you have hooked it all together, but essentially what you're saying is, knowing what data you can get in and out of systems is like the key part. I know it sounds obvious in an integration, but I know it's hard to know what you don't know until you get there. But obviously it's key to, I guess, map. I think the lesson learned there is really mapping all the data you think you can get from the APIs and seeing if it gives you everything you need in those calls. And obviously, did you approach any of these vendors to try and like add or change things here, or how did that go?
We did every step along the journey. We've had multiple conversations with both vendors. To their credit, they've been fairly responsive, particularly Brightspace. They're super responsive, and we've got a good relationship with our client management liaison person there.
Yep.
But they're ultimately a big company. They service lots of clients. A lot of those clients are overseas and have quite different needs from us. So often the response is, look, we'll let our development team know about it, but can you lodge a request with our online community, and we'll get back to you on where that fits in our product roadmap down the road, which is usually like 12 months to 2 years, that thing will actually get action. So usually it's less than helpful for our immediate needs, and we end up having to build a workaround out of the box that, not out of the box, sorry, customized workaround on our end, which is expensive and time consuming and not much fun.
Yeah, I think what I've seen as well, once those workaround or go in place, generally you're not really going to come back and fix them. Because if they're working, unless they are very bad and sort of flaky, if they work, they stay as is, right? And that sort of just hits the limitation, because there's no point, spending more money on something that's already working. So, I think that's a good lesson learned there, though. Something I try and always say to clients is that, vendors are trying to build a product for their customer base, and their customer base is trying to be as big as possible, right? So they're trying to build the product that's not for you, but for as many customers as they can. And that means essentially they've got to try and have a generic product, right? If they niche down too much, then they alienate other people. And, as they get bigger and bigger, it becomes harder and harder, because they'll have all these different clients requesting all these different things, and it does get challenging. They might have a list of 200 or 300 or 400 features, right? And yours might be just one of them, but there's only limited resources they have. And ultimately they've got to look at the one that the most people want and also move the product in the direction they want. So it's a problem we've come across in integration, and it's sort of good you've come across it. So you sort of said before you're still working on the integration, so it's operational by the sound of it, but you're sort of plugging on a few other things. So is there more you want to do with it, or what's left? So we're just really at the point of tweaking things. So there's stuff in the CRM that I'm discovering as we go
isn't quite where I want it, and so I'm just making little requests of the development team to fix things up. But yeah, by and large, it's complete. But there'll be new needs that we identify as we go, and we'll continue to have to create features and adjust things and change things. So nothing's set in stone, but our major needs have been met so far.
Well, I think you've done well, as I said. Like any IT project delivery is always good. You've moved from one platform to another, or one to many, really. So I guess to try and summarize, what would you say, like if you were doing it again, what would you try and do different? Like how would you approach it? Would you try and do it the same way? Well, I know we talked about before trying to, look at what data you can pull out early on, and obviously that's a lesson learned there, but what do you think how you would approach it differently next time?
I think next time I would sit down with the UX designer and really flesh out the user journey through the system. I'd want to be much clearer on the needs that we have, our requirements, and really flesh them out with someone who's really good at specifying requirements. I think prior to purchasing any software, definitely make sure that you've put it through its paces. So request a demo. If they won't provide you with a demo, go with someone else. It's amazing the number of providers that won't let you get in and test out a piece of software, which I think is just ridiculous, because you can't possibly know what needs you have and whether you can't know whether a platform's going to meet your needs until you're actually there playing with it. Yep. So do that. I think if you don't have tech expertise at all in-house, if you can afford to hire someone internally who can kind of act as the middleman between you and a third-party tech provider, then do that. If you can't, then I guess you need to find a tech provider that is really good at bridging the gap and communicating clearly with you what they are planning on doing and how they plan to do it. Having worked with some providers now who aren't very good at communicating, I don't know what the word is, the lingo of the trade in a way that I can understand, it can become incredibly frustrating because you're going back and forth thinking you're talking about the same thing, but it turns out they're talking about X and you're talking about Y. And, I've had weeks just disappear in very confusing, convoluted conversations that don't end up going anywhere. So you need to have someone in between who speaks the language if you can't find that third-party provider that can. Yeah,
that's like what I call that. It's the business technical bridge, right? Someone who's technical but also understands the business. Obviously, that's the background I've sat in for a while, and that's, as you say, it's very important because you can just lose time by, losing things. Now, it's an interesting thing you said earlier on, and something we definitely promote is the use of, you sort of touched on around UX, but the best way to look at it is prototyping is a really good way to try and extract out those requirements into something that's sort of tangible. And that also helps bridge that gap. So if you've got them into some sort of prototype, you can convey that a lot easier to either internal staff or to external vendors or to whoever you bring on board, right? And for me, pictures just are better than speech and text, because the amount of times I've seen big waterfall documents that are 40 pages long, people still don't get it. You do a user story, dot points, they still don't get it. But once they see like a picture of, here is the end product and we want to click this button and we want this to happen. With integrations, you're definitely going to have mappings involved that you're going to have to work through and document. But to give you that sort of, to help bridge that gap, help pull those requirements out and confirm that understanding, I think prototyping is a really good and could definitely be something it's also, relatively cheap comparatively because it's pictures. So you're not writing big documents and you're not writing code. You're doing that. So probably something to do next time. But
and we did do some of that to a degree, but yes, it still got lost in translation. So yeah.
Oh, look, it's tough. Yeah, depending on the technical people, right? There's meant to be product owners, product managers, business analysts, all sorts of stuff, but the project gets quite big. So depending on the size of your project, you sometimes can't do it. So that's it, mate. That's sort of all the questions I had. So is there anything else you wanted to add on the process or anything else that, would be good for someone who's sort of, I guess, approaching this? Well, it's becoming a more common problem, right? People have a lot of systems, either vendor-based systems or SaaS-based systems, and their data is now, in these different silos, I guess. And they've got to action it across multiple systems. So in your case, you had someone sign up and that needed to trigger, enrollment in a course and then a payment into Stripe, for example. It's not an uncommon scenario. Sure, it's not in the learning area, but it could be any sort of, digital good that you need to sort of link 2 or 3 or 4 systems together. So any sort of final thoughts on that?
Yeah. I guess the key for me that I didn't realize is how much work is involved in the go live phase. Like,
Yep.
there is the integration piece and whatever, but I just thought, we click a button and the site goes live and we're done, right? But there's months of work that's required kind of to get you to the point where you can click a button and go live. And even when you do, there's so much work for the next 2 or 3 weeks where you realize all these things you thought were going to work really well kind of don't. And data doesn't end up where you think it's going to end up. And so there's a lot of fixing up and repairing and bugs to identify. And so, I guess plan extensively and plan early, and then be prepared to throw the plan out the window and plan again is what I've learned. I think, I just really want to reiterate the importance of getting someone who can map out the requirements and do some UX with you, because I think, as you said, like that just saves you so much pain down the road, because you've got the thing, you're playing with it, and you can go, yes, that's going to do what we want to do, before you bake that into code and then have to fix it down the road.
No, look, mate, they're good. They're really good points, honestly. So, look, for someone who's only done it for 6 months, I think you've had a full end-to-end experience on this whole thing. You'll be a veteran. Mate. You're jumping into your next project soon, or?
I need a break. I need a holiday. And then I think I have learnt a heck of a lot about so much, but I think project management particularly. But I need a bit of a break before I dive in again. That's for sure.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Yeah, look, I will say a lot of things you've mentioned, we've seen time and time again on projects. And you just don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know how complex an IT project's going to be until you get involved, how many moving pieces there are. Yeah, as you said towards the end there, even just the facilitation of moving through different environments into production and how that works. And look, luckily for you guys, it's a new product, right? You weren't really trying to transition. I know you had to transition some old data, but if you're cutting over from a existing, a legacy system to a new one, that compounds that problem as well. So
we had a bit of that, and there was a fair bit of data cleanup, but we had some good people in the team who were able to do it. I think the other thing I forgot to mention is making sure you get all the stakeholders who want to be using this thing in the room with you right at the start, so that you are designing it upfront for their needs. We left out 1 or 2 people that we didn't realize had a stake in it all, and that slowed us down a little bit.
Yeah, that's actually a really good one. Yeah, trying to get buy-in from everyone, but not only that, sort of like that acceptance up front to buy into the process. I also say, like, if you get them involved in the process, they can also see the problems as they're occurring. If they're too far at a distance, they sort of just, I guess, expect perfection and don't really realize why it's taking so long. So try and take them on the journey, I guess, with you, so they can, when you've got to make the hard decisions and go, look, this is really challenging. We either can't do this, can we cut it, or can we do this a simpler way? At least they might give you a positive answer.
And so much of your work, is invisible to people.
Yeah.
You're the magic underneath, behind the scenes.
It's a button, right? You press the button. That's. I just see one button.
That's right. Yeah.
And
so I now know how much goes on beneath the hood, and it's quite incredible. But I think part of my role is explaining to my leadership team the value of everything that's happening underneath and how much work has gone into that. And I think it's the future. Like, if we can bring together more of our systems, more of our data, and just house it in one place and streamline reporting, it saves everyone a heck of a lot of time and money.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like, follow-on processes, right? It's not just the day-to-day, like, I guess, admin and processing that you need to get done. It's the flow-on effects, down the line. So hopefully, and I know we were originally talking about potentially into zero, so reporting and taxation there. So you're talking about these things that you can, go full circle and then make decisions to improve the business back the other way, and they're sort of automatic, so that it's sort of baked into your overall business process. But at the same time, making the process more automated, less errors hopefully will occur because there's not humans doing it. So it's just benefits all around, really.
Although that is interesting, you can never fully get rid of human error when you've got your customers entering their own data into your system.
Yeah.
That's another conversation for another time.
No, that's great, mate. Yeah, look, that's perfect. So unless you've got anything more to add, mate, that's been really helpful.
Good
what an
conversation,
experience, mate. You good one. My special thanks out to Cameron for being so open in the conversation. Some really key lessons there for everyone to learn around integrations, particularly around getting the requirements right at the start, as well as building that bridge between tech and business. The final one there he mentioned towards the end about stakeholder management couldn't be more key. You've got to make sure you get all your stakeholders on board up front to make sure they're involved in the process and are aware of what you're going to deliver for them. Finally, I'm just going to reiterate around the various comments around vendor systems. Key to keep in mind that vendors are always looking out for their own product, and when you're integrating into their product, you've got to think about the way they're going to look at your integration. They've got to see where their product is going, and they're not really worried about your problem. You've got to try and plan for this in your roadmap, and we talked about this at the start of the conversation. You've got to go through and look at all the APIs you're integrating with and see the data you can get out of those systems, as well as push into them. If it's not there, your best bet is to ask the vendor as soon as possible, but you've got to assume they're not going to be there ready for you to use. It's been a really key lesson, and I love talking to Cameron about this, and I hope to have more of these videos in the future. If this has been helpful for you, let me know in the comments below, and I'll try and line up more conversations with clients in the future.